Hello and welcome to a Monster Mechanics mini episode, where today we're talking about our favorite magic items from RPGs. So this is just us talking about some magic items that we've either created or just read, or just basically it's just story time with Zach and Scott.
Sort of ruminating on some of our favorite moments in the past.
Exactly. So the one that when I said this to one of our players, who is now my wife, this was her favorite, which was the Turtle of Holding. Actually, I think it was a Tortoise of Holding, technically.
Yeah.
From a campaign, a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that we ran for a few years. Oh my God, was it 10 years ago now? Oh God, I feel really old.
I think it was closer to 15.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now I feel ancient.
Yep.
But yeah, this was the excuse for us to not have to track all of the like carrying capacity and weight limits and all that stuff. It was just the way for you guys to have a little donkey with you all the time. But the format of it was you actually had a never-ending bag of lettuce leaves, and whoever was carrying that bag would be followed around by a very, very large tortoise, and you could open one of the segments of its shell, and it had an extra dimensional space in there. And then my favorite little detail of it was that it could go through spaces that it shouldn't be able to fit through, but not while anyone was watching, because it got shy.
Yeah. It was also kind of an interesting thing where, you wanted to access something from your space of holding, but you had to wait for it to catch up.
Exactly. Yeah, because it moved at some ridiculously slow speed. So it would catch up to you by like that evening, but it wouldn't always necessarily be with you at every moment, which is nice. It gives you, like, it's slightly out of reach. Like, you can't grab it in the middle of a combat round, basically, but you can get to it if you are at a door or something like that. That's a real good balance. So what about you, Zach?
So I got several that I remember fondly.
Yeah.
The first one that springs to mind is in that, I think it was even that very same campaign, we had, and this is kind of a ripoff of Terry Pratchett, but it was such a great idea, was the Imp in a Box. That I was playing a character that was a planar tourist, and he brought with him his camera, which was just an imp in a box who took really fast sketches of things.
Yeah, that was a 100% Terry Pratchett ripoff, but was so much fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Some other favorites were the Vial of Endless Lemonade instead of the Decanter of Endless Water.
Nice.
And I've always been a fan of some of the more like things that kind of mimic modern day technology.
Oh yeah.
In one of the campaigns I ran, we had just a metal box that had several frost methods trapped inside that chilled your food or whatever else you put inside of it.
Yeah, I remember being in the party of that game, and we had a lot of discussion about whether or not we should take that box or not, and eventually decided that it was too bulky, but it was super exciting to find.
Much to my disappointment.
Yeah, because of course when those frost methods get out, of course that's going to be a problem. Similarly, from the same campaign, not from that campaign, but the other one we were talking about, I threw you guys a ever writing quill, which was just a quill pen that always was writing on any surface. It would create an indelible mark, including like in the air as you are like moving it around. Little wisps of ink are coloring the air as you move it, and the number of times that you and our other players would use that to like draw mustaches on statues and stuff, and just get like all of this graffiti fun. Was so good. It was just like, it had no it had no like combat thing. It could never solve a puzzle or anything like that, but it just added flavor that gave you guys a bunch of enjoyment. And I loved watching you guys use it too.
Oh yeah, that was a great time.
Okay, so on that token, we'll finish it off. Everything that we've mentioned up to this point has been like custom one-off stuff that we did for various games. From the standard like fare of magical items, what do you think is your favorite?
I'm always a fan of anything that has sort of an extra planar space, like portable holes, bags of holding, that kind of thing. There's just so many opportunities for players to do something clever with it. On the flip side, on the other hand of it, where control is kind of completely out of the player's hand, I love the deck of many things.
Yeah, that is a super classic. The deck of many things is the destroyer of so many campaigns.
I know. As a DM, I've introduced it into a few of my campaigns, and every single time my players run screaming from it.
It has a reputation. But yeah, I like anything that mechanically requires you to roll on some big ass table and find out what your results are. And that they could be anything from not particularly useful or effective to ends the campaign immediately. The thing that comes to mind was when we did Rise of the Rune Lords in Pathfinder, we ad hoc'd together a Wild Mage class for me to play. And I insisted that we use the D10,000 chaos table.
Oh, yes.
Where every time there's a chaos surge, we had to roll 4 D10s and then like get the 4-digit number together and then
consult the binder.
Yeah, pull out a binder. That was so much fun. Yeah, I think the thing I really, really like, other than, I mean, for the longest time as a D&D player, I was just the horrible min-maxer kind of guy who, I mean, what I really wanted was something with bigger numbers on it. But looking back, the things that I kind of wish I'd done more with were like things like portable boats, like foldable, like what was it? What do they call it? Where the one where you can like fold out a boat.
Oh yeah, I think there's like a feather token or something.
Yeah, there's feather tokens. Yeah, and there's also like token tree where you can like make a tree appear out of nowhere.
Oh yeah,
that kind of power where it has like very little utility in like combat, which is unfortunately what D&D is mostly about. But like where you can just do some weird stuff on it. It's like, oh, we need to climb this sheer face. Oh, I know. I'll plant a tree right next to it, and then we can climb the tree to get part way up and go over. Or I'm going to fold out this boat inside of the room, and it'll like block the door and stuff. I love that kind of thing.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of single-use magic items with interesting, potent effects.
Yeah, like, where you get a little bit of control over the narrative for just a moment, and then it's used up. But then and one thing that you have to combat like in a lot of RPGs is that instinct to hoard everything, where you're like, oh, I can't use this yet because it might be useful later. And so if you can come up with some way to like encourage your players to actually just go ahead and use it and trust that they'll find new cool things later, that's really helpful too. That way they're not like rummaging through their entire inventory of 500 things that they've got stored that they have no intention of.
Might need this elixir at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. Well, that's some of our favorite magic items from RPGs. And next week we're going to be covering the Predators from the Predator movies.
All right.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Monster Mechanics. This is normally where I would plug our social media accounts and Patreon. But considering the state of things here in the US, we here at Monster Mechanics would like to encourage you to do what you can to help fight the epidemic of violence by our nation's police. Donating, volunteering, and protesting are all excellent ways to make it clear that we will not stand for this. To that end, we've included some links in our show notes where you can get started with your support. Monster Mechanics is produced and edited by Scott Paladin. This episode was hosted by Scott Paladin and Zach Jaquays. All ideas generated during this podcast are released under a do what the f*** you want public license.